What we find for a lot of people is that they are experiencing in their relationship, nothing's wrong, but it doesn't feel good either. So they're not fighting, not even unhappy, but something feels quite flat. And the hardest part is they often can't point to a reason.
No, you ask them a question and it's like, so what's going on? And they're like, well, nothing. And that's not good, not bad, not otherwise. It's just nothing. And that's a challenge, right? Because how do you start from that? Like, where do you go? Because often they also don't know what they really want, do they?
No.
No. If we look at it on a day-to-day basis, when we talk to these people, it's like, well, we're in our routine. We love each other. We're doing our thing. There's, business, or there's kids, or there's dogs and goodness knows what else. But there's not that same level of excitement that there was before. And there's not that same level of even passionate conversation about things that they'd love to do together. It's sort of just like, oh, we're just going to get through the day, pay the bills, drive to work, come home, put our feet up because we're tired. And again, we still love each other, but there's nothing going on. And for some people, part of that is the peacekeeping type of role, isn't it? Where they're hanging out in that sort of mode of, oh, I've got to be a little bit careful because I don't like conflict and I don't like creating tension between us. I love my partner a lot, but not necessarily wanting to upset the apple cart. So I'm not going to ask for what I want. I'll stay sort of a bit restricted in what I do, what I express. But sometimes it's just the fact that we're all tired. We're exhausted. We've got a lot to carry, and so be it, right? It's just easier to do the routine and to be in that safety zone, isn't it? So that often becomes the erosion, the slow erosion of the relationship. Yep. Yeah. But it can't stay like that, can it?
Well, everything continues to move, and it's like anything, nothing sort of stays the same. It might feel like it is, but often if things are eroding quietly, incrementally, then that will show up in areas of the relationship. And what people find is they experience things like giving themselves a hard time is one sort of thing where it's like, I should be more grateful for this person in my life. My family loves him. My friends tell me she's awesome, sort of thing. And I don't disagree. I feel the same way. But again, there's this vanilla thing going on. So things are quietly eroding. And then we sort of take on this concept of, well, maybe that's just how relationships are. Long-term relationships is like...
There's like a resignation.
Yeah, they start off all bright and shiny and fun and amazing. But then, we just have to accept that there's this natural slide and it tends downwards over time. Sooner or later that we're heading down that slope, But it's not true, but it can be one of those things that people take on board to kind of explain the way they're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a few symptoms that people can look out for in regards to this. And I know it sounds very clinical, symptoms, but it's things like forget to hold hands. There's not that same level of care. There's not the touches, the looks, the internal jokes. They're not sort of there anymore. They sort of start to disappear and become less and less important. They fade into the background. But I don't know about you guys, but when I watch some of the videos, maybe on Instagram or some of those things that are the oldies, like the super oldie couples that have been together for a long time, they're still doing all that stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like they're still touching and they're still kissing and everyone goes, oh, that's lovely. And they do a dance or whatever it is, but they've maintained that level of connection in spite of all the years. The years doesn't mean that things have to erode and become become nothing, become I don't know what's wrong here, but there's something. There's something that's not quite sitting right. And I think the other thing that we could point out as a symptom is that when things are tracking along, it feels like a low level, okay, everything's okay here. But the human body can't really cope with that for too long, can it?
No.
Eventually, it's going to need to shift some energy, and it's going to do it in certain ways. Either it could be creating an argument, for example, have a blow up, or have an external drama that maybe rallies support from your spouse, or adventure type stuff, like super extreme adventure stuff. Not saying there's anything wrong with doing extreme adventure sports or anything like that, but If you're doing it because it's the only way you feel alive again outside of your relationship, there's a symptom, there's a sign that potentially the relationship is actually eroded away. And in high performing humans, in entrepreneurs, in business owners, that's actually quite a common thing, isn't it? Because they've got this, and I might be talking to you, but there's this real connection to achievement and feeling the buzz of doing something beyond the ordinary. And if the relationship feels ordinary, and it's the most important connection you have in your life, right? So it's very important that we're actually sourcing that from that person that we love and creating those moments together consciously rather than trying to source it outside of the relationship. I guess that's what leads to affairs and other things as well, because that's pretty exciting and dopamine laden, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But, we can get to thinking like, I'm not motivated enough and sort of take that on board, or I'm not trying hard enough, or, maybe I've chosen the wrong spouse and that sort of thing too. And
I should read another book.
Maybe read another. Yeah, that's right. And it's these ways that we attempt to try and explain what's going on and maybe to justify actions that we're taking or whatever, rather than, I guess not understanding, but reacting and sort of feeling like, well, there's nothing here for me. I don't want to blow it up. I just, maybe you don't have the energy for what you think that means, or you feel like I'm too busy. I've got a lot going on. I can't afford to move on and make that sort of change.
Well, there's
in
a
my
cost
life
to splitting up, isn't there? There's a lot at stake when you decide to call it quits with somebody.
Yeah, that's right. And so there can be a lot of reactivity goes on without a lot of understanding behind what's happening. And, I think this conversation sort of just starts to crack open some of the doors on that front, so that, maybe some of these things you can relate to, where it's like, I've done that before, or that's something I've been thinking about. I want to go and do something exciting or more active or whatever, and it's really more of a compensation outside of the relationship because of the vanilla nature of the relationship, rather than it's just true for me to go and dive out of a plane or whatever I've wanted to forever, and so I'm going to do it because I'd love to, and it's aligned with my heart. It's more of a compensation. So where we're coming from in relation to what we're doing is important to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, even communicating that to your spouse, if you're coming from that point of, I've got to do something to move some energy, obviously that's not what you're going to say, because you probably don't identify it as that. But that's essentially what people do when they want to go and do something adventurous or dangerous or different. It's not usually received very well. Whereas if it's a true heartfelt desire, like I've always wanted to jump out of an aeroplane, it's just something I've really loved to do. And I'm just, when you communicate that's received very differently, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not about necessarily reading another book on how to communicate better or how to get what you want. It's about learning to be more cognizant with who you are on the inside, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so what do you think is one of the big things that we would say with people who are feeling a bit meh with their relationship? Because it's not as obvious as, say, someone who's living with anger issues or who's dealing with outright being shut down and those sorts of things, because they can be a lot more obvious that there's a problem in their relationship. But this is it's
more subtle, it's quieter, it's sort of, it's hard to pinpoint and that sort of thing. So when it's like that, I mean, it can be right through to, big conflict too. But what we're talking about is more that hard to put your finger on scenario, where the relationship just feels flat. One of the things that can really help with that is where just one of the people in that relationship becomes clearer about what it is they would really love in relation to that shared experience. And by that, I mean, like, what are the qualities of the relationship that you would really love, that you could imagine? Well, I'd love us to feel like that vibrant fun, that sense of adventure where we're doing some exciting stuff together, and we've got our next trip planned, and we're taking time out for us. We're going out and having a meal together and actually communicating. We're not on the phones while we're at the dinner table, but we're talking about some stuff. We're finding out about what is it that the other person is really looking forward to in their life at this point in time. And, opening that back up again, taking the time to do that.
Yeah.
And really get clear on what you'd love in the relationship. And when one person does that, it has a huge impact on the relationship as a whole. A lot of people think that, I might be able to get on that page, but the other person's not going to do that. And they feel like, well, that it's all over because nothing can change then. We both have to be on the same page. And a lot of books will say that. But it's not actually true. It's when one person becomes clear and stands for that truth in their life and that relationship that they love, then it gives the relationship the opportunity to meet that that vision.
Yeah. And I think the important thing there is to allow it to unfold, to not force it. Because sometimes I think we think, again, you read the book, you do the course, you whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm going to go and teach them this. Hopefully we can have a great conversation and we can get on the same page again and be, but it's like just taking responsibility for ourselves and that clarity and just noticing that you actually start communicating differently because there's more easefulness to it. There's no hurry. It took you a long time to get to this state, I can tell you. So just give it a little bit of a moment and just notice how it can actually start to fall back together again as a coherent, beautiful relationship again. So, this is not something about addressing broken things or things that you see wrong with yourself or wrong with your partner or anything like that. It's more about just being really honest with what do you want to create? How do you want, even take yourself back in time and go, well, when we first got together, what were the dreams, the hopes, the desires? Can I connect back into that energy again and communicate from that level? And again, not making it wrong or blaming anyone for getting off track, but just going, no, we had a vision. I had a vision. I want to reinstate that vision and come back to that vision because it's never too late, is it?
No, that's right. And that's if you had, fantastic. You've got something, a point of reference that you can hook into. But even if you didn't, because a lot of people come together and they just hit the infatuation phase.
True.
It's like, mate, he's hot or whatever. And that's that. And they get on with it. And it's fireballs for a while. And then it kind of tapers off. And there was never really any consideration about what we'd love as this, to experience in this shared experience of life together. But it's never too late, just because there may not have been in the past. You don't have that point of reference maybe, then create it now. Just take a moment and reflect on, well, if I could have it the way I'd love it, how would that be?
Yeah.
And that when you do that, you taking the time to do that and to clarify that for yourself is you taking responsibility for your part in the relationship. And it's really powerful and it's really effective at creating change.
Very much so. Yeah. Daydreaming for the sake of the both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think we all do to a degree anyway. We sort of, there is this way, but we put the filter on and say, oh, yeah, but I'd love it to be this way. Yeah, but in the past it's been shut down or made wrong or whatever. But remember, every conversation is just a moment in time. If you got shut down on something, it's just a no for now. It's not a no forever. Have the conversation again. Once you're coming from the right place, obviously. Don't force it. Amazing. So if you'd like to find out more about this and other relationship dynamics, feel free to subscribe and follow. Make sure that you tune in for the next one.
Great.
We'll see you there.
See you then.